Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is September 11th, and right now we are looking at the combination of Doppler radars here across the Pacific Northwest. The green box here shows where thunderstorm activity is for today. We did have some lightning strikes this morning across some of the coastal areas and even in a little bit further across some of western Washington and western Oregon. You can see where the stronger storms are supposed to be today in this darker green area. That does include Boise, some of southeast Oregon, Highway 95, Butte, Helena, and Great Falls, Montana. And you can see we do have some lightning activity ongoing right now, and I'll show you more on that here in a moment. But you can see this does not include the Seattle Metro, at least according to the SPC. But again, a nice system here. This is bringing some much needed precipitation across the area, and this is really going to help out portions of western Montana as it does its little wraparound low as the upper level low moves across the area over the next few days. So we'll take a look at the mid-range and the extended forecast as well. We have more systems on the way here. Some interesting stuff coming up, and we're going through the fall transition here. We'll dive into those details as we go through the video here this morning. Taking a look at precipitation total so far. Look at this, not bad. Hoquiam is 0.6 of an inch. You got Fort Lewis there at 0.7, and check it out, Florence Municipal Airport there in Oregon, the Oregon coast, 0.08 of an inch of rain, and still ongoing right now. So hopefully we can continue to bring a little bit more here across eastern portions of the Cascades of Oregon, where the fire activity has been pretty prevalent, and for portions of Idaho here as well. And this system will bring some very needed precipitation across places of western Montana where there's been fires and there's been some exceptional and extreme drought. Looks like lesser amounts the further you go north across some of the Puget Sound here, but still take what we can get at this time of year. And here's the last 24 hours on the mid-level water vapor loop. You can see the system diving down the coastline right into the Pacific Northwest. And then we've got the next round, the next trough here is now moving across the Aleutian Islands. It's going to take its time, but it will be moving over the top of this ridge and back into the Pacific Northwest. And there's what's known as a cutoff low out over the Pacific Ocean north of the Hawaiian Islands right there. So if we scroll through yesterday, we're going to back up all the way to yesterday afternoon, and you can see that you had some nice lenticular clouds. If you could see really close, if I zoomed in, you could see them a little bit better. But Mount Rainier putting on a show yesterday. I went out there and took an hour time lapse, about 3,000 photos, still trying to process all that. You can see the thunderstorms kicking off across northeast Oregon. We continue on in through the nighttime hours and the early morning hours, and you see the thunderstorm activity for some of the Washington and the Oregon coast if you look closely enough here. And you can see northeast Washington, actually southeast Washington, northeast Oregon, getting some activity there as well. And then we scroll on in towards this morning, and you can't rule out thunderstorm activity with this band right on the Oregon coast now that will be moving across the Cascades over the next few hours. So let's take a look at the thunderstorm timing here for today. This goes to about 1 o'clock today. Then you can kind of see how it moves off to the east as we go through the afternoon, early evening hours, and we get towards the later evening here. And you can see that pushing off into places like Butte, Missoula, Montana, maybe Boise there, and across the higher terrain of Idaho. Now, this is looking at today. This is a wind and a hail threat here, again, for southeast Oregon, Boise, Idaho, Butte, Missoula, Great Falls, right on the cusp of that as well. And you can see the thunderstorm threat there is still in effect for eastern Washington, eastern Oregon. This is day 2. It starts to push off to the east, but look at that little 2% chance of tornadoes, Glasgow, Montana, and there's Billings right here, just off to the east and just north of Sheridan, Wyoming. Now, if we look at the fire risk here, we do have some elevated across Idaho and extreme portions of southeast Oregon now, but this system is definitely helping out. There's still some breezy conditions here across Nevada, for example, that aren't getting as much precipitation as we are across the Pacific Northwest from this system. So if we take a look at the Doppler radar and what it may look like here over the next 60 hours, you can see the NAM3 cam picking it up well, and you can see this continuing on through the late morning, afternoon hours, stronger storms right where they showed that severe weather threat. And then you can see this upper level low spinning across and still continuing to impact portions of eastern Washington and northeast Oregon. And look at this, kind of a dousing rain here for portions of Idaho and Montana as we go all the way on in through Thursday afternoon. We're heading on into Thursday night here before the slow moving system continues to push off to the east there. And then we wait for our next storm system here across much of the Pacific Northwest. So wider view of things here. There's Washington State. You got the Aleutian Islands here. You got Japan all the way to the left. The Hawaiian Islands would be right there. And there's our trough moving through right now. So you can see that swinging through, and then we got the next system here that's going to be dropping down as we go on in towards, what is this, about Friday morning here, and there's Saturday morning right there. So it's going to be coming just in time for the weekend. This ridge tries to build here across some of the Gulf of Alaska. We'll watch that closely because it looks like it's going to be far enough away to allow additional troughing to drop down the west coast of North America. And then a transient ridge tries to swing through, still some troughing, kind of cat and mouse game, pretty close. But then you see the European starts to try to develop some ridging here for the Pacific Northwest as we head on in towards the extended period here. You take that with a grain of salt, but the models continue to hint at some potential warm-up as we go on into the later portions of September. Now, closer look at that same map here. There's the initial system, and then the next troughing starts to come down as we go on in through this weekend here. And then we kind of playing this cat and mouse game of how much of this fall weather are we going to get versus some ridging out over the Pacific Ocean. Pretty typical for this time of year, honestly. Now, taking a look at the northern hemisphere. So this is Alaska right here. There's Greenland, and you can see Europe is over here. You got Japan right there. You got the Hawaiian Islands. There's Washington State, Oregon, British Columbia. So as we go on in towards the fall months, of course, the direct rays of the sun are going to be dropping south of the equator as we go on in towards later portions of September. So we allow our atmosphere to cool down more and more in the northern hemisphere. So this polar vortex gets stronger and stronger, reaches further south. The mid-latitude cyclones will eventually be racing back into the Pacific Northwest with much higher frequency. And nothing changed from year to year there. That's how it works. We build this colder air. The mid-latitude cyclones start to impact the Pacific Northwest and places down the west coast a little bit further as we build up that polar vortex across the northern hemisphere. So if I put this into motion, you can kind of see the dynamic movement of this. Almost looks like a purple octopus there across the northern hemisphere. So yeah, that is what, that's something we watch here as we go on into the fall and winter months. These systems will become much stronger and bring precipitation at a much greater rate back into the region. So it's kind of fun to watch this move about. Now, if we take a look at the 300 millibar heights, you can also see that how that correlates here with the jet stream shown at about 30,000 feet here. So again, these jet streams will get stronger as the colder air builds across the northern hemisphere as we get on in towards the fall and the winter months. And you can see kind of a strong jet stream emerging out in Fantasyland here that might drive some ridging eventually across the Gulf of Alaska. We'll see how that goes, or it may drive a trough down in the Pacific Northwest. You never know how that's going to work out, but you can see at the very end of the GFS there's some pretty deep troughing across the Gulf of Alaska, way off into Fantasyland. Now, looking at daily 2-meter max temperature, this is the National Blend of Models. So this is for today. You can see 67 Seattle, maybe up towards 70 for the Willamette Valley, a little bit warmer east of the Cascades still for this time of year. There we go, the 12th. There's the 13th, Friday the 13th coming up, actually. I didn't even know that was coming. So there's Saturday, Sunday. We start to cool down a little bit more with that troughing rolling through here. You can see no big warm up off in through our immediate future as we go through the mid-range forecast coming up here. But still not bad temperatures out there. We're not dealing with the cool or winter, fall temperatures out there just yet. We get to go through this transition and still have some nice days, mixed in there. You can still see how the valleys up into British Columbia, for example, through the extended forecast are still warming up quite decently as we go through September 21st. Now, looking at apparent temperature, though, if you're across the higher terrain, you can see as we go on in through the day today, we warm up the diurnal cycle. Then we go on in through Thursday morning, and you can see us cooling down here across some of the backcountry. A little bit raw there Thursday morning. So heads up, campers, anybody out there in the backcountry. And then again, Friday morning, you can see things still pretty chilly out there, but not quite as bad as Thursday morning. And then we wait for that next system. Now, smoke as well. Let's take a look at what the HRRR is showing, the high resolution rapid refresh. This goes out 48 hours, and the 48 hours come every 6 hours. Otherwise, this model does run every hour, and those individual hours go out 18 hours. So I like to show the 12Z run as I'm doing these morning briefings because we can look out 48 hours. But you can see that it's still producing smoke here. The system is not going to extinguish a lot of these fires. There's still going to be smoke production from these fires as we go on in towards Friday morning. Hopefully that next trough will come in here and add a little bit more precipitation to help extinguish that. And this is looking at the vertically integrated. This is the entire column of the atmosphere. The last one I showed you was the surface smoke. So you can see still dealing with that smoke, especially east of the Cascades. Not too bad for Seattle, Portland, or Southwest BC in the meantime, though. But you see this could be drifting out over Boise, Idaho, for example, a lot of eastern Oregon as we go on in through Friday morning. Here's the 6 to 10 day, below a normal signal there for much of the West Coast all the way through September 20th, getting a bit more stout with the probabilities here across California, Nevada, and portions of Oregon, but this extends all the way across the west coast. Here's a 6 to 10 day precipitation above normal signal. Hopefully it gets on these fires. Fingers crossed for that. Let's get these fires extinguished and let's be done with that for the season. Now taking a look at the 8 to 14 day all the way through September 24th. So they're not showing much ridging here on the Climate Prediction Center. So we'll take that, right? And then the 8 to 14 day precipitation still above normal here for the Pacific Northwest. So anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We will do this all again tomorrow, break it all down, and I will talk to you guys then.